Hello, welcome to Cirrius Talk. I'm your host, Greg Banks. Today, I have Chad Anderson, the CEO of Cirrius Solutions, and Tim Harting, our Chief Operating Officer. In this episode, we're diving into the world of AI in the Salesforce ecosystem. Specifically, the differences between AI agents and Agentforce. We'll tackle some of the big questions companies need to ask when deciding if, where, and how to bring AI into the organization. Glad you've joined us today. Let's dive right in. Hey, Tim and Chad, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here today. Let's just jump right in.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Tim, I want to start with you today. I think having some terms out there to understand what we're talking about as we're talking about it will help folks out. Can you help me with AI agents versus Agentforce agents, and how does that translate to good use cases? How do you know when to do one over the other?
Yeah, no, great question. I think a lot of people hear AI floating all around, then they hear AI agents. There's, AI agents is a distinct subsection within the general space of AI. So there's really kind of 5 critical things that you're looking for in terms of defining an AI agent at large. Then there's some differences when you look at Agentforce agents, which is within the Salesforce ecosystem. So we'll kind of delineate between both of those. But when you're looking at an AI agent, it's, starts with an LLM, right? We're taking advantage of generative AI capabilities, whether that's ChatGPT, Claude, et cetera. We're using an LLM to generate text or generate content or to make decisions for us, right? And it's going to have a system prompt that's guiding the LLM that's specific to that AI agent. So we have 2 components, LLM, system prompt, but then that has to be grounded on knowledge. So specific context. When it comes to AI agents, context is king. So that could be a database, that could be your CRM, that could be your Google Drive, right? But it's a set of documents or a set of knowledge digitally that the agent has access to that differentiates it just from the larger LLM itself. And then finally, you've got tools, right? So what are the actions that agent can take to actually do something for whoever's using it? Maybe that's to generate a document, send a report, send a Slack message, send an invoice, right? So something that an agent actually does that drives productivity, that drives business value. And so those are kind of the main components you look at. So system prompt, LLM, knowledge, tools, right? When it comes to Agentforce, very similar, but and we're going to see those are the critical things for an Agentforce agent, but Salesforce adds their own flavor to that. So within Agentforce, you've got role. So what is the job that they should do, really? And that's comprising the system prompt to that agent. You've got data, which is the knowledge that it's pulling from. What knowledge can it access? And then it has the actions. What capabilities could it have? That could be executing a flow or an approval process or a piece of code. Then Salesforce adds kind of 2 other different flavors here to kind of the standard agent definition. That's guardrails, what shouldn't they do? So it helps constrain the agent in terms of what to do. That's a really useful aspect that kind of adds onto the system prompt. And then finally, the channel. Like, what's the front end in terms of where they work? Is it in the side component with an employee agent, or is it on your website or within a community on an experience cloud? You got to determine the channel.
When you think about use cases in light of some of those things, do you have a couple of examples we can relate that with?
Yeah, I think when it comes to looking for a good agent use case versus, a use case for a person or automation, right? You're going to look for something that, 1, drives productivity and business value. And then 2, it's got to kind of thread the needle between being deterministic and low risk. And I think we'll get into that a little bit later. And so I think something like that would be a good example would be like booking appointments, right? Booking appointment agent. I think service use cases have been really key. Leveraging an agent to book appointments. That's something that's low risk. It has low determinism. Makes a really good use case for an AI agent.
Fantastic. Thank you. Chad, turn it to you. When a lot of times in the CRM space, people are looking to kind of reimagine their processes, whether that's your sales pipeline or any kind of things. It's this process, a series of steps and actions to do things. How does AI change how you would address redoing a process?
Yeah, very good, Greg. Thank you. Well, first of all, I think AI is additive. It really helps people become more productive. I think if we look at it in that kind of a framework, is that it amplifies our employees, not replaces them. And I think humans are better focused on like human interactions. So in this example, I would answer like this. I would say, agents aren't good for everything. Like Tim explained, if there's high volume tasks or actions, if there's repetitive things, if there's things that help us get our job done, like the creation of a work order, the validation of an invoice, things that, don't add a lot of value. And so I would say people are better focused on building relationships, high risk activities, financial decision, people management, strategy, leadership, right? So I think first of all, we look at where can agents help supplement people to do the jobs, that add the most value for the agent itself.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And when you look at kind of the three levers, I mean, you really have three levers now where you used to have two levers as a business. And this is where I get really excited with the possibilities for AI agents. When you looked at a business process, you largely had two levers as a business leader to apply to that. I could either apply a person to go make decisions and execute an action within my business process, or I could apply automation, right? Whether that's code or a low code tool for to make a decision and take action, right? And workflow automation, that's great for very deterministic use cases where there's few variables, low risk, very deterministic. People, they thrive in very non-deterministic, high risk, high impact areas, right? Well, what's really exciting, I think, Chad, you and I've talked about this quite a bit too, is we got a third lever now, AI agents, and it kind of threads in between both of those. So if you imagine kind of a spectrum going from a deterministic, very few variables to non-deterministic, many variables, AI agents kind of slot right in the middle for maybe use cases where workflow automation struggled, where maybe there is some non-determinism and several variables, but still it's a low risk use case where aligning a person might not make sense. You want them to focus on your most high impact areas. And so adding that third tool set in, I think is going to be a game changer and kind of something we've already seen kind of get leveraged really well, both within our business, but also with a lot of the customers we're working with right now.
Yeah, I would add to that as well, Greg. Looking at the business process, you always want to architect the best process to drive to the goal that you're trying to achieve, right? Customer satisfaction or solving the customer's problem. We're looking at agents throughout that process to help, make it more productive. So when we look at our business, we still have requirements gathering, and then we have planning, build, test, and deployment. In the requirements phase, they can help us gather requirements and document things. And the project management, they can help us with status reports, timelines, milestones, things like that. The build, they can help us write code, fields, things like that. So they can help us throughout the process, but they're not necessarily defining the process for us.
That's great, guys. Yeah, I love the word levers there. It creates some visuals in how you would think about things. I don't think anybody would struggle with, hey, I want to look at putting an agent in that I understand, I buy in, I want to use this. But when you think about all the things that your brain normally does when you're trying to talk through what that is, having different levers and different tools really helps understand or paint the picture of how you would approach that. That's great. That's great. Appreciate the back and forth there. Tim, you talked a little bit about some use cases that might be good. You mentioned a few things in the last question there about non-deterministic or complex or high risk. I'm assuming there are things that just on the surface, anybody relate to. These are things you just need a human doing. These are not good use cases for AI as it sits today. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think we kind of termed this, what are the key things you need to keep human? There is different things across every business that has to have a human touch to that, and that's really not going to go away. We see AI agents doing a lot of disruption, but not that much disruption, right? And so in terms of keeping human, there's a couple things. One, there's a few areas within your business process. If you, like, for example, if you're a services company and you have some critical touch points in your customer journey where things can get very emotional or where it's very critical to be very high touch or white glove treatment within that piece of your customer journey, you don't want to replace that. That needs to stay human, right? So kind of in line with what we already talked about, if it's a high risk or just has high levels of variability and just a lot of variables, a human calling in on, a very emotional topic, for example, like maybe it's I'm at a foundation repair company and my foundation leaked and I have a hotline to call if I'm having issues with my foundation repair. Yeah, there's a lot of variables with that. The person could go many different directions with that call. You probably want a human in that call, very high touch, right? So you want to look at those. But I think there's one other aspect you really got to look at too is, if you're rolling AI agents across the business, there's a lot of companies trying to roll these AI agents out across the business. And not only do you have the use case itself, but also whether your own people are going to support and use that AI agent within your business, your own employees, right? So you got to look at as well, what is the sentiment around that task or use case that you're rolling an AI agent out for? Do people enjoy doing that task as a human, or is it something they don't like doing? And, kind of seems common sense once you shed light on it on this topic. But it's, if you start rolling AI agents out for something in your business that people really enjoy doing, from a change management perspective, that's going to be a lot harder to get adoption for that AI agent to get it delivering value. So in addition to looking at from a deterministic and risk standpoint, also look at how much do people like doing it. And if they don't like doing it and it's non-deterministic and has medium levels of variables, that's a prime use case. You want to start there. And so, we've kind of tweaked a little bit how we help customers find good use cases. We're really starting to kind of settle and kind of dialing in on some of these really key areas to look at. So determinism, number of variables, task sentiment. I think those are kind of three of the most critical ones in terms of determining what to keep human versus what to give off to an AI agent.
Yeah, that's great. Chad, I know we've talked about things internally, but when you consider AI, if we're doing an agent for something we might use internally as opposed to doing it for a client, are there any examples you want to add to that? Things that you just find that you can't replace a human, at least not how things are today?
Yeah, I mean, generally, I think Tim covered most of it, but, I would just say anything that carries legal, ethical, political implications, like, contract reviews, you want a human to do that. You're negotiating price, you're negotiating terms, things like that. Obviously, HR activities, things like hiring, firing, performance reviews, right? There's a lot of tasks within each of those, and it's okay to work on a task. It can review resumes, but you don't want it making decisions on the right person to hire because there's more behind it. There's technical, there's personality, things like that. So, I mean, like, again, I think it's common sense, but a lot of times people want agents for everything. They think it solves every problem and they can reduce headcount and save costs. And that's just not the case in most cases. So,
yeah, great point. I think is this has been something that's come out and has not just launched, but then launched and changed so quickly. There's a great temptation just to everybody go throw an agent in. If you don't ask the right questions on the beginning, it can really get challenging. I want to come across a couple of news headlines that I've read about over the last week or so. One of the first ones, Tim, I want to throw at you. Salesforce launches MuleSoft Fabric to orchestrate and govern AI agents across the agentic enterprise. That's a lot of complicated words, but I know there's high impact to what that means. Could you translate that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's always hard to tell when you get new products coming out, what's hype, what's real. This one I'm excited about. I mean, I think this one's really hitting a niche in the space that there's not a lot of other platforms or tools doing right now. What you have happening across the ecosystem in general is businesses are investing in AI agents. They're investing in them across multiple platforms, whether it's in their project management platform, their CRM, custom agents, right? And there just really isn't a good way right now, if you have multiple frameworks, to coordinate across your agents to have a single registry of what agents are in your business, what MCP servers you have in your business, what they are doing, and having common frameworks to work across with each other. That doesn't really exist on one platform yet, right? I think there's a lot of other players trying to make a play here. And so I think MuleSoft is very well positioned for this. And I think it's something that needed to happen. ETL tools like MuleSoft, from an integration standpoint, they're going to have there's going to be some disruption there with AI agents, because AI agents can serve and largely act as an ETL tool in and of themselves. So I think this is big for two reasons. One, I think it puts MuleSoft in a really competitive space. Two, I think it's hitting a really big niche. So MuleSoft Agent Fabric, you're going to be able to have a single registry for all your agents, whether it's a custom Python agent, Agentforce agent, a AutoGen framework-based agent, and you're going to be able to have them communicate across on one framework, agent to agent, A to A framework, and having a registry of your tools and all your agents able to lean in on those tools with the MCP framework. So yeah, pretty exciting announcement. I think there's going to be a lot more coming on it with Dreamforce coming up here over the next couple of weeks, but definitely excited to see where this is going, and definitely see a lot of customer use cases for this already.
Yeah, I think it's really easy for an organization who has Salesforce to focus on maybe either a Salesforce solution or just the agents within Salesforce. But the truth is, if you have an enterprise, you may have a lot of different agents on different platforms of types. think all can be utilized from that place. So having a tool like this is going to help be the orchestrator of grabbing the right tool at the right time for the right purpose.
Yeah.
An infinite number of ideas there. Yeah, Chad, go ahead.
Yeah, just to add one last thing as well is I think, agent development is very different than standard Salesforce development in the fact that you're continuously tweaking agents, you're monitoring them, you're optimizing them. So you need one place to monitor performance so that you don't just build it, walk away from it and think, I think it's working, but you really need to continuously monitor it. And this is a spot where you can do that. And if you're doing that, you're ultimately going to be more successful with your agents in your agent strategy.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You're covering observability, you're covering evals, you're having a single platform to kind of compare apples to apples across all your agents and all your tools by leveraging kind of a single platform there. So totally agree.
That's a good point. Yeah. There's a lot to look at when it comes at this. This is a game changer in the industry for sure. Next article, and I'll let you choose who wants to respond first. Meet your channel expert. Your always on agent in Slack.
Tim is the expert here. I'm going to let you handle this one, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about and think that, your collaboration platforms, so think the big ones, Slack, Microsoft Teams, Discord, they are really well positioned to become the front end for most of your tech space agents for your business. People like talking and communicating with people, even if they're working virtually. They like having conversations. That's why they like being in Slack or Teams or you name it, right? But when you're talking collaboration tools, so Slack's going all in on agents. You got Agentforce agents in Slack. You can do custom agents in Slack with the Bolt API add-on. And now you got channel experts. I think this is just kind of one more thread. It'll be interesting to see. It's not clear how much customization, how much you can tie channel agents to tools in and of themselves. But essentially, it's a AI agent tied with an LLM that has the full conversation history of the channel that it's in for context. And so I think it's going to be a really lightweight option to be leveraging, lightweight AI agents across all of your key channels in your Slack organization rather quickly. So I think the jury's maybe still out in terms of how impactful channel agents specifically will be. I think kind of the story that this is telling in general, though, is, Slack's continuing to position itself along with the other major collaboration competitors out there. I think those are really going to be strong contenders for becoming your primary front end to integrate with your agents where your users actually interact and chat back and forth with the agent. But Chad, I don't know any other thoughts from your end there?
No, I mean, I think you hit everything. The bottom line is Slack is changing how we do business, right? Instead of like sending emails, you put everybody, including the customer, in one channel and you collaborate in real time. And now they're just dropping the ability to communicate with your agents on top of that. So, I mean, I think it just gets better and better. Yeah, it'll be exciting to see where it goes, but I love it.
Yeah, I think that the great thing about this is while these topics are advancing on multiple fronts, the questions we started with about what should remain human, what's deterministic, what's not, all those questions apply to all these situations. So again, knowing the right things to ask and doing that on the beginning will save you a lot of heartache on the back end.
Yep.
I'm going to turn format here a little bit. We've got some rapid fire. These are just, again, topics that I'm seeing in the industry. Obviously, they're news articles. You haven't had time to read these. So just want kind of your hot take. Give me a 30-second or less response to this particular topic. The first one, talking about Service Cloud AI agents. Are support agents really becoming autonomous?
I think yes, with human in the loop. I think for most businesses, they're able to execute with fair amounts of autonomy. I don't think we're at full autonomy though.
I'm not going to add anything to that. Yep.
Yeah, these are quick. AI replacing dashboards. I mean, the point of CRM is having data and having visualizations of that data. People love their dashboards. Can AI potentially replace those?
Some, but not all. I think you're going to have your critical dashboards that have a microscope on them. But I think this is going to open up a lot more use cases to have more interactive dashboard. I think Tableau Next is a great example of that in the Salesforce space. And then surfacing those dashboards in different places. So Tableau Next can surface directly in Slack to the users on a lot of different queues. So I think, again, it's opening up more use cases where you can get data visualization to help drive your business. I don't think it'll completely replace it yet.
Yeah, agreed. I think it makes it more conversational. You can just go in there and ask who your top 3 customers are. I'm in Chicago. Who should I see? And it can respond in real time. So I think it adds functionality. And then you can also get like real-time updates. So if you close a big deal, things like that, you can have the agent take action on it. So Agreed.
Yeah, that just opens so many ideas about how does this replace or complement what traditionally would have been an integration in the past, right? A lot of new opportunities to talk about there. So we won't open that that can up today.
That's a whole episode in and of itself right there.
It absolutely, yeah, and it's a fun one. It is a fun one. Probably won't be a short format. RAG and agents. Is this our secret sauce, or is this being overhyped?
Secret sauce. Yeah, I mean, I think context is king when it comes to AI agents, and RAG is the king, is the primary way to provide that context. Again, RAG can come in many different shapes and forms. We can say whether that's a vector database, whether it's a knowledge graph, etc. But RAG in general, retrieval augmented generation, that is the primary way you're providing that context to that LLM or to that Agentforce agent. I'm a big believer like that is the secret sauce right now to making a strong agent.
Anything to add there, Chad?
Nope. Agreed.
All right.
Nope.
All right. Last one today. Agent orchestration. Is chaining multiple agents practical yet?
Yes, and we love it. So, yeah, I mean, I think when we look at implementing an agent, right, they're very specific on the tasks that they're looking at doing, what they can help, people accomplish and the ROI that they drive. Having agents be able to connect together is super powerful. So they can all do their unique, expert jobs and then roll back up to the agent manager who is helping kind of orchestrate that. But I think it's very powerful and it just adds significantly to how organizations can use agents to accomplish a goal.
Yeah, totally agree. I think we're already probably over time on this one, but I like it. It's hyper-focused agents strung together with what we're seeing as the most impactful. I think it's just like you can iterate with your LLM to get better answers. Agents working together can iterate with each other to get kind of better results at the end rather than one large agent.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think kind of one of the things I hear from today's episode is there's a lot of ways to come at these. Chad, you used the word helper early on, and if you look at an agent as a helper that's available, it's a tool available to you, finding the right helper for the right job. And sometimes you hand off to one helper who then hands it off to another. So sequencing those together to complement what the process is, but using the right tool for the right job. It doesn't just apply to pipe fitting and electricians. It works here in Salesforce too. So really, really good stuff, guys. Some great articles, great topics to get into. I look forward to opening these up to some more things before we go today. Is there any closing ideas? There's just so much to get into here, but I want to make sure you.
Yeah, no, I think we're good. I think some kind of pretty meaty topics here. Really excited to see where MuleSoft Agent Fabric goes. I think Slack continuing to have some really big updates. And I mean, I'm sure these are just the beginning. Dreamforce is just around the corner. We all know there's plenty of announcements at that.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll have plenty more to talk about in the coming weeks for sure.
Sounds
excellent.
Great.
Thank you very
All
much,
right.
Greg.
Gentlemen, thank you much for your time today and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Y'all have a great later. Day. Talk to y'all later. Bye.
Take care. That's it for today's episode of Cirrius Talk. I really appreciate Tim and Chad joining us today to highlight some of the really exciting topics in the world of AI and Salesforce. Please join us again next time when we can dig deeper into consulting in the tech space, as well as big news from around this ever-changing ecosystem. Please subscribe to be alerted to new episodes. If you have any questions, you can reach us at Cirrius Talk at cirriustalk@cirriussolutions.com. The address will be in the show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.